You might think war begins with missiles and headlines, but the first detonations are likely to be economic, digital, and social. How World War III triggers internal collapse before the first bomb drops is not a theory. It's a cascade of failures that turns everyday systems into brittle links. In hours and days, a global escalation can fracture supply chains, freeze financial rails, darken grids, and silence communications. And those breaks are the soil from which local panic, migration, and opportunistic violence sprout. If you want step-by-step checklists and real-time updates, join our community through the link in the description. And stay with me. This is the practical, prioritized plan you need if early indicators appear. Start by picturing your town 3 days after a massive geopolitical escalation. Banks are taking their systems offline to contain fraud. ATMs show errors, not cash. Grocery deliveries stop because trucking manifests are frozen at ports. Fuel stations either display out of service or lines wrap around the block. Local authorities are flooded with calls and dispatches are delayed. Social feeds light up with rumors, confounding information spread faster than any verified source. In that gap between uncertainty and reality, two types of actors emerge at the neighborhood level. Desperate, impulsive looters driven by immediate need, and organized marauders who exploit breakdowns for gain. Your response in the first 48 to 72 hours determines whether you buy time and preserve options, or become reactive and vulnerable. Why will domestic collapse precede kinetic strikes? Because modern societies run on interdependence. Think of the national system as a spine and nerve network. Sanctions and cyber intrusions attack the spine, the economy and critical infrastructure, and nerves downstream lose function. A targeted cyber attack on payment processors can make money inconsequential for a day. Logistics delays at ports cascade into empty store shelves within 48 hours for everyday goods. Fuel rationing follows, and then transport slows. When electricity falters, communications degrade and noise grows, both literal and informational. This is how global actions translate into local instability well before a military exchange. Diagnostics. The vectors you should be watching are practical and specific. A coordinated cyber campaign can disrupt banking backends, payment switches, and fuel point-of-sale systems. Financial measures like rapid sanctions or market halts can lock up liquidity, freeze cards, and make electronic transfers unreliable. Transport shocks happen when container flows, halt, or truck manifests are delayed. A single clogged port can ripple inland. Energy grids are vulnerable to attacks and operational stress. Rolling blackouts and localized outages create immediate secondary effects on pumps, refrigeration, and communications infrastructure. Finally, communications blackouts, whether from targeted degradation, overloaded networks, or information control measures, make rumor a primary source of truth and push people to act on incomplete information. If the banks go offline, what do you do first? If fuel becomes scarce, where does your priority shift? These are not hypothetical. They are decision points the rest of this plan is built around. Human consequences and threat typology follow predictable patterns. In the first hours to a few days, you'll see scarcity-driven behavior. People who normally plan ahead start to act under immediate needs. Long lines at stores, fights over fuel, crowds at gas stations, and short tempers. Opportunistic looters are typically uncoordinated, driven by chance. They respond to perceived abundance. They knock on doors, break into unlocked cars, and target businesses with obvious stockpiles. Their goal is immediate consumption or quick resale. Organized marauders are different. They plan, observe, and exploit structural weaknesses. They coordinate watch rotations, identify choke points, and target profitable assets like pharmacies, fuel depots, or small warehouses. They may use intimidation and calculated force, but they face the same friction as any group operating in a social system. Time and uncertainty are their enemies. Your job is to increase friction, reduce their return on effort, and buy time until order stabilizes, or your community can organize. Now the practical portion. In the first 24-72 hours after credible indicators appear, prioritize three things: information hygiene, concealment of resources, and redundancy of essentials. Start with information. Confirm sources, cross-check local official channels, and resist amplifying unverified claims. Rumors spread faster than supply trucks. Your behavior must be guided by verified, conservatively interpreted signals. Operational security, OPSEC, comes next. OPSEC is not paranoia. It's common-sense concealment, so you are not advertising your readiness. Limiting who knows about your caches is critical. Tell only a tightly vetted circle. Think in terms of trust networks, not convenience. Avoid posting about supplies, generators, or fortified windows on social media. If you have extra fuel, food, or medications, keep them out of immediate view. Visible indicators of surplus, full garbage bags at curbside, a grill being smoked in daylight, bright lights at night, or boxes stacked by the front door. Act as beacons. The most secure position is the one that looks ordinary. Camouflage is not about deception for its own sake. It's about reducing incentive for others to target you. Keep exterior lighting modest. Use blackout curtains if needed. Restrict noise. Avoid generators running during obvious hours unless absolutely necessary. Shift usage to odd hours to reduce patterns. Use decoys if appropriate. A visible low-value stash in an exposed area can satisfy casual looters, while your primary cache remains concealed. Decoys work because most opportunists will take the easy visible prize rather than invest time probing further. A practical decoy might be a small, non-essential box at the side of the house, rather than a detailed labeled inventory or instructions. Prepare contingency caches for 24-72-hour needs. Distribute them. One small supply in your primary living area, another in an exterior secure location, and a third shared within trusted households in your immediate circle. Cache rotation is critical. If items sit unused for months, they degrade or create discovery risk. Notes on legality. Avoid storing uncontrolled dangerous materials or anything illegal. Focus on legitimate supplies. Keep medication accessible but secure. Keep documentation for prescriptions in a safe but reachable place. Fortification basics are about buying time, not creating an impenetrable fortress. The goal is to increase friction, slow intrusion, and channel movement so that you can respond or allow law enforcement to catch up. Start with identifying weak points, doors, windows, garages, and low-slung basement egresses. Reinforce the frame and entry points by improving locks to legal, commercially available options, installing secondary barriers that are removable and non-destructive, and using inside barricades that obstruct direct entry while allowing escape if needed. Think layered defense, perimeter, outer barriers, and an inner safe space. Create movement funnels, simple choke points that slow entry and expose intruders to observation, so you and your team can assess and respond. Psychological deterrents matter. Signs that a property is watched can be powerful, even if they're bluff elements. Recorded barking dogs, visible motion lights, used judiciously, and clear but non-threatening signage indicating private property and community watch can dissuade many opportunists. Lighting and noise should be used thoughtfully. Loud deterrents can warn off intruders but also attract attention. Use recordings and staged deterrents as part of a broader plan, not as your only measure. Guard animals are an accessory, not a solution. A trained dog can be an early warning system and a deterrent, but dogs require training, care, and a plan for their welfare if you must relocate. Do not rely on a dog as your only line of defense. When it comes to actual defense posture, legal and ethical considerations must guide every decision. Self-defense laws vary. Know your local statutes before escalating. Use lethal force only as an absolute last resort and within the law. Your priority is to avoid lethal confrontation by deterring, de-escalating, and if possible, retreating. Non-lethal options, such as pepper spray, blunt force devices sold commercially, or handheld deterrents, provide alternatives that reduce moral and legal risk. but they have limitations and require training to use effectively and safely. If you possess firearms, treat them as tools that require disciplined storage, maintenance and training. Regular practice, secure storage to prevent accidental use or theft, and legal compliance are non-negotiable. Focus on marksmanship fundamentals, safe handling and scenario-based training that emphasizes decision-making under stress and clear thresholds for escalation. Maintain equipment. A neglected system fails when needed most. Also maintain ammunition judiciously. If supply chains are stressed, restocking may be difficult, so prioritize training dry fire and low round drills to preserve your resources while keeping skills sharp. Training is not optional. Practice movement in your space. Rehearse communications protocols with your group, and run tabletop scenarios that focus on non-lethal outcomes and fallback positions. Simulations are a force multiplier. Teams who've practiced make better, calmer decisions under pressure. Prioritize medical training too. A small investment in basic trauma care can offset multiple risks you might face. De-escalation is the highest yield tactic most of the time. When someone knocks and claims to be in need, your first response can be humanitarian and pragmatic. Provide small, low-value aid through a slot or from a distance if you deem it safe. This buys time, reduces direct confrontation, and can prevent needless escalation. There will be times when compassion is a risk trade-off. Your community should decide default rules. For example, an agreed list of assistance that can be provided safely without exposing your stores. The moral calculus is difficult. Prioritize life where possible, but protect those who are part of your trusted circle. Community-level strategies convert isolated households into a resilient network. Begin by identifying trusted neighbors and establishing small teams with clear roles: logistics, communications, medical, and watch. Trust is binary. Vet slowly and start small. Formalize a simple agreement: who shares resources, how watch rotations work, and what the rules of engagement are. Code words and pre-arranged signals for all clear, suspicious activity, and evacuate reduce confusion in tense moments. Rotate watches at agreed intervals to avoid fatigue. Tired defenders make mistakes. Communications alternatives are vital because cell networks and the internet can fail or be overloaded. Shortwave and VHF, UHF radio networks can be effective within safe legal bounds. Learn how to use them now and assign frequencies for local communication. Agree on redundancy, a primary channel, and 1 or 2 backups with scheduled check-ins. Use encryption and privacy-minded practices where possible, and keep transmissions short and purposeful. The aim is to prevent panic and coordinate efficiently. Pool resources strategically. A community pantry for high rotational goods, water, basic food, medical supplies, shared under transparent rules reduces duplication and prevents resentment. Keep inventory simple and visible to permitted members only. Rotate stock to prevent spoilage. Collective logistics like shared fuel caches require elevated trust and legal awareness. Where collective fuel storage is impractical or risky, prioritize alternatives. Shared generators for short rotations, staggered power needs, and prioritizing critical loads like medical devices. Perimeter defense at a neighborhood scale is about surveillance and denial, not siegecraft. Establish observation points with overlapping fields of view. Use movement funnels to channel traffic into areas where the community can see and assess. Patrols should be non-confrontational. Observe, report, and document. Maintain clear rules about engagement, when to call authorities, when to observe, and when to intervene. Cameras and recording devices can support accountability, but must be used in line with privacy and legal considerations. Now, let's talk indicators and timeline. The watch for signals that should push you from normal readiness to elevated posture. These are not predictions of exact days. They are observable signs that internal collapse is accelerating. If you see multiple items from this list, treat them as compounding risk factors. Banking and payment disruptions, banks restricting access, payment processors showing mass errors, widespread reports of card declines, and ATMs returning errors rather than dispensing cash. Fuel interruptions, prolonged outages at major gas stations, sudden rationing notices, or fuel delivery trucks being delayed or stopped en route. Logistics and retail shortages, empty shelves for staples like bottled water, bread and medicine that persist beyond a typical restock window, sudden store rationing policies, utility instability, rolling blackouts, unexplained outages affecting communication towers, or reports of critical infrastructure operators taking systems offline for protection. Communications chaos, misinformation spreading faster than verified updates, social platforms throttling information, or official channels recommending limited communications. Law enforcement strain, official statements indicating limited capacity, delayed emergency response times, or visible reductions in patrol presence. Population movement, sudden, large-scale migration patterns, such as long lines on highways, mass congregations at shelters, or ad hoc camps forming near supply centers. Organized criminal indicators, reports of coordinated attacks on infrastructure, repeated similar methods used across multiple incidents, or groups openly coordinating on social channels. Assumption note: if supply chains halt for 72+ hours, scarcity becomes widespread in metropolitan areas. These are qualified scenarios meant to structure your response, not guarantees. Decision points shaped by these signals should be simple, binary choices: stay put and fortify, or prepare to reposition. In the context of pre-kinetic internal collapse, the title's emphasis is on bug-in strategies, staying with fortified, discrete positions because a bug-out can expose you to road choke points, ambushes, and uncertain reception at a new location. If you must relocate, plan months ahead where possible. Identify multiple destinations, stash essential documents and small emergency kits, and have a clear route with alternatives. Do not broadcast movements. Psychological and social measures tie directly into survival outcomes. Blending in reduces incentive for intrusion. If your lifestyle visibly demonstrates scarcity, modest car, sparse yard, ordinary trash, you are less likely to be targeted than someone advertising abundance. Social stories matter. The narrative you project informs opportunists' cost-benefit calculations. Develop scripts with your household for plausible answers to common questions, e.g., "And we're short on everything, can't help," or "We've been hit too." These scripted responses reduce stress and keep you from revealing more than necessary. Negotiation and conflict avoidance skills are underrated. A calm voice, an offered small service, or a compassionate diversion can de-escalate a potentially dangerous interaction. Always prioritize the safety of vulnerable household members. If a situation turns violent, your training and predefined rules of engagement decide the outcome, not improvisation in the moment. Ethics must be explicit. Preparation is not hoarding at the expense of neighbors. It's prudent stewardship for your family and your community. Where you can, support vulnerable neighbors in ways that do not expose your stores. Small, compassionate gestures build reciprocity networks that pay off in resilience. After-action vigilance is equally important. Passing the most dangerous day is not the end. Threats can recur and attention fades. Secure your perimeters, check caches, and rotate watch duties for several weeks. Evaluate what worked and what didn't in debrief sessions with your small trusted team. Replace perishable supplies and repair anything damaged. Document lessons learned and update your contingency plans. Now, a practical prioritized checklist for the next 48 hours when indicators appear, arranged by priority rather than step-by-step instructions. Verify, conceal, secure, communicate, and prepare. First, verify. Rely on multiple independent sources, official emergency management messages, local utility operators' alerts, and reputable news services. Cross-reference before changing posture. Second, conceal. Move high-value consumables out of sight. Remove obvious indicators like stacked boxes. Cover generator fuel containers so they are not visible. And lock storage areas with legal, commercial locks. Limit knowledge to a tightly vetted circle. Third, secure. Identify and address the weakest entry points in your home. Install temporary inner barriers that slow entry. Ensure windows have secondary internal shutters or curtains to deny visibility, and create an inner safe room with water, a first aid kit, and communication means. Fourth, communicate. Establish and test local communications channels with your trusted group. Agree on check-in times and redundancy. Keep messages short and factual to minimize radio traffic and suspicion. Fifth, prepare to redistribute. If mobility becomes necessary, pack a go bag with essentials and keep vehicle fuel topped off within safe legal norms. Plan legal travel documents and prescriptions in an accessible folder. Identify at least 2 alternate destinations and the routes to reach them, considering choke points. These priorities buy you options and time. Time is the critical commodity because it lets community organizations scale, allows supply chains to reroute, and reduces the advantage of opportunistic attack. Let me be clear about weapons and the ethics of force. They are part of the reality of defense for some households, but they do not replace preparation. Firearms are tools with legal responsibilities. They require secure storage, maintenance, and realistic training. Non-lethal options reduce risk and are often sufficient to deter most opportunists. Always check and comply with local laws regarding possession and use. Document your training and ensure any use of force follows legal, proportional, and defensive guidelines. If you're uncomfortable with force, invest in other high-yield options. Stronger OPSEC, better community coordination, and medical readiness. Where does the larger picture fit? The central thesis is this: global war dynamics create domestic vulnerabilities through economic paralysis, cyber disruption, energy stress, and communications degradation. Those vulnerabilities do not require a single kinetic strike to cascade into local disorder. They create the conditions in which everyday systems fail, and human behavior changes. Understanding the causal chain is what lets you design a response that prevents collapse from reaching you or your community. The highest return actions are not the most dramatic. Buy time by hiding resources, reinforcing the obvious weak points, and organizing trusted neighbors into simple, practiced roles. Prioritize information hygiene. Rumors create chaos faster than shortages. Practice de-escalation, and design escape routes for people and pets in case the location becomes untenable. Keep medical basics within reach. Rotate responsibilities so no one person becomes exhausted. Finally, a short, prioritized list of what to do right now if you see 2 or more of the indicators we discussed. 1. Confirm with at least 2 independent sources. 2. Move your most needed supplies into an accessible, discrete inner cache. 3. Reduce visible signs of surplus and enforce strict OPSEC among household members. Contact one trusted neighbor and agree on a watch protocol and primary communications channel. 5. Charge critical devices, preserve battery power, and conserve fuel for necessary movements only. Preparation increases options. Options buy time. Time allows for negotiation, community organization, and for systems to reroute and recover. That is the essence of defending against collapse before the first bomb drops. Not fortifying to the point of isolation, but building a resilient posture that keeps choices open. If you want the practical materials to implement this plan, download the free 48-hour survival checklist and the Community Watch Setup Guide in the description. They contain the prioritized actions, a simple verification template, and a basic logistics form you can use with trusted neighbors. Stay calm, stay discreet, and prepare deliberately. The world's conflicts will create shockwaves here at home long before any missile lights up the sky. Your best defense is planning that reduces friction, preserves options, and focuses on life, not on spectacle.